Hello, everybody. I'm Mr. Davenport, and welcome back to Exploring Natural Resources and the Environment in Agricultural Education. Let me fix that quick little editing mistake on my part here, and then we can get started on today's video lesson. So, today, what we are discussing is we are looking at the water cycle. And the thing about the water cycle is that it is like a routine that water goes through. It's typical that we would have a daily routine, okay? One that helps us make sure that we have things accomplished. Our routine every morning, like brushing our teeth, getting out of bed, getting dressed, is a process that where we take things and take place and decisions are made. There are many things in our lives that are on cycles, and we may not realize it. We actually encountered cycles every day. And did you know that water participates in a cycle? Water travels through many steps as it completes what we call the water cycle. So let's get our brain in gear, okay? So from the time that you wake up until you get to school, there are tasks and decisions that you make every day. So for example, you have an alarm that goes off at 5:30 a.m. Do you hit the snooze button, yes or no? So if you hit yes, then you'd sleep for 10 more minutes. If you don't hit the snooze, then you get up and get dressed. If you hit yes, you hit sleep for 10 minutes and then get up and get dressed and then eat breakfast. The next step would be that you'd have to ride the bus. And then if you ride the bus, you'd either arrive at school on time or arrive late. And then you go home and the cycle starts all over again. So our water cycle is like our daily routine. It's how water is taken and reused and recycled. So let's test your knowledge real quick. I have a question. How is water made? This is probably something that you haven't thought about before. It's probably something that really hasn't crossed your mind. See, water is a natural resource and it's found throughout the earth. And once water enters our natural resources, it's constantly recycled throughout the earth in a process called the water cycle. The water we drink, the water we wash our car with, the water we give our animals to at home has gone through this recycling process. The water cycle is important because it helps filter that water, making it renewed and refreshed for future use. So, what is the water cycle? Well, the water cycle is the continuous path throughout the earth that water moves on. And water is recycled by moving through the earth's environment in this water cycle. So water is constantly moving. So, have you ever been outside right after it rains on a hot summer day? Does the water just disappear? I mean, where does it go? That water goes through a process called evaporation, all right? Or that is when the liquid form of water changes to water vapor because of heat. It'll be a good idea to write down that definition of evaporation. Evaporation is the conversion of water from liquid to gas because of heat. We experience evaporation every day, whether it's drying your hair or sweat drying on your forehead after you've been outside, or as water evaporates, it travels to the Earth's atmosphere where it changes to water vapor. So when we're looking at the water cycle, the first step is evaporation. So that is heat causes water to convert from liquid to water vapor, and then that gas goes into the atmosphere. But that's not where all the water in the world is. Water is also inside the leaves of plants, and heat can also cause plants to release water vapor into the atmosphere through a process called transpiration. Transpiration is the process of plants releasing water from their leaves into the atmosphere. So the water that has been evaporated and the water that's been transpired, they both go into the atmosphere to the point where it starts to cool down. And as the water vapor rises in the atmosphere, it begins to cool and it starts to slowly turn back into water. That process is called condensation. And as the water vapor condenses even more, clouds are formed. And so then, because these clouds basically are water vapor, as the vapor cools, the droplets then turn from clouds into rain or snow or sleet and fall to the Earth's surface as precipitation. When water reaches the ground, it can then enter waterways such as rivers and lakes and oceans, and precipitation can also enter the groundwater and become a part of the groundwater system. And then the water is eventually brought back up to the Earth's surface, and the process is started all over again. Now, I just walked us through the water cycle in text. Let's take a look at the water cycle on the screen so that you guys can better understand it. In fact, I'm going to move my big head up out of the way so that you guys can see this more clearly. So, this is our illustration of the water cycle for environmental and natural resources. So, let's get that going. So, remember, our first step, evaporation. Remember, evaporation is the conversion of water from liquid to gas because of exposure to heat. And so water travels from the Earth's surface into the atmosphere. All right, so our next water resource is through transpiration. That is where plants release water vapor. Okay, it's the process of plants releasing water vapor from their leaves. Then, as water is released as water vapor by plants into the atmosphere. Now, here's the thing. Let's go here. Both of these, transpiration and evaporation, follow this path because it's water vapor. And it goes to the point where it gets to this point there, condensation. When the evaporated water vapor and the transpired water vapor get into the upper levels of the atmosphere, it starts to cool and turn back into water droplets. Those water droplets condense, which is the process by which water vapor in the air is changed into liquid water, and it condenses into clouds. So that water vapor goes from a gas to a liquid, but because this liquid is still in the atmosphere, it forms clouds. Then the next step is the clouds become precipitation. That is when water is released from the clouds in the form of rain, freezing rain, sleet, or snow, or hail. And as the water vapor condenses, the vapor droplets become so large that rain and other forms of precipitation are formed, and it falls back to the Earth's surface as precipitation. And when the water reaches the ground, it enters waterways such as rivers, lakes, streams, and oceans. And then some of the precipitation winds up in our groundwater. Right? Remember, groundwater is the fresh water below the Earth's surface, and it seeps down below the surface of the Earth through pores in soil and rock. But it doesn't stay there. it collects and it can go back up into rivers, lakes, and streams, or literally leak out back into the ocean through the groundwater system. And then the cycle starts all over again. It is one big cycle. So, we're going to go back over this one more time in a good order so that you guys can understand. We're going to do this without the definitions. So, the first step in the water cycle is evaporation. Okay, whoa, back. The first step in the water cycle is evaporation. All right here. This is the process of water being evaporated, turning into water vapor from the Earth's surface. Evaporated water goes up into the atmosphere and condenses. We also get water through transpiration, which is when water is released as water vapor by plants into the atmosphere. So the transpired and evaporated water vapor rises into the atmosphere. They condense and it forms clouds. Those clouds get more and more condensed until the droplets turn into big drops of rain, sleet, snow, or freezing rain, and they fall back to the earth as precipitation. The precipitation reaches the ground where it enters waterways like rivers, lakes, and oceans, or seeps down into the ground, becoming groundwater. And then the process starts all over again. Evaporation, transpiration, condensation, precipitation, groundwater, evaporation. The process goes over and over and over again. It's a cycle. So that ends our look at the water cycle today, ladies and gentlemen. So keep a look at this video, look at the lessons. There are going to be a few things that I want you to do this week utilizing the water cycle. With that, have a great day.